Hey, I am totally honored to be here, guys. I wish there was some interaction that I could see, but we'll get through this. Um, I'm so glad that Dar kind of prefaced it with the retirement thing. I have been out of law enforcement a long time. I currently work for the Sheriff's Department in Maricopa County as the health and wellness coach, and left law enforcement for a little bit of time in there and started my own business helping first responders transition, helping tier operators transition, military personnel transition. My exit from the police department, as you can tell, this is a long time. This was pre-Beard. This was in 1997. This picture was taken when I started the police department. And in that time, I had some cool opportunities to work. I mean, I moved around so much. I went to patrol, as we know. I went to a bike team. This is right here is our scat team. And it's crazy how the emotions in law enforcement ebb and flow. So on this team, this was the scat team. It stands for Special Crimes Apprehension Team. Super cool, elite team. I felt like I was living a life of Nitro Circus. So even in the departments, even in that, it changed so much. So that was this a little undercover work. This was a an individual who was basically a very bad guy selling drugs, guns too. And it's just crazy how law enforcement will take you through a pretty wild roller coaster ride. And I show these pictures just to show you some credibility. I've been there, I've done some fun things. But I really didn't learn about life. I didn't learn about myself until I retired. So welcome to the trauma factory. I love to use this. I love to explain. Um, I'm an expert in trauma. This is my third marriage. So first marriage, trauma, second marriage, trauma. And then I'm like, okay, am I going to take everything that I had? Is it going to bleed into my third marriage? And I started doing some research and I figured out these stats are not perfect. They're always ebbing and flowing. But first responders, and when I say first responders, I'm talking about all of us, DOs, sheriff's department, dispatch. I mean, if you are working in the field, you'll understand what I'm saying. So let me give you an example. A career officer spending his time in on the job is going to experience anywhere from 600 to 800. And they're kind of throwing these stats out there, which I believe for some of us are way higher and some of us maybe lower, depending on where we work. But you're going to experience an ungodly amount of trauma, of critical incidents. Okay. And so we take these critical incidents back to the station. We sit around with our guys and we talked about it. Um, a critical incident in the jails would be a guy's on the top rung and he swan dives off the top and lands on the ground, right? And then we have to discuss that. We have to debrief that, and that's a traumatic incident. But it doesn't have to be. And I heard Dar say this originally. It doesn't have to be these major baby death or this major car accident, the decapitate. It's not that stuff. It's the thousand cuts. Okay. And then check this out. Then we take this stuff and we go home with it and we sit with our spouses and we're like, hey, babe, how was your day today? Oh, it was great. Check this out. I was at the jail today and a dude swan dive and he hit the ground. And your wife or your spouse is looking, she's like, who are you? Like, what happened? Where did you go? Where did my husband, where did my wife go? And then, so we're taking this trauma and we're bleeding all over our family members, right? And it's that secondary trauma and it's not purposeful. We just live a very, very different life. So what I want everybody to understand is this is the trauma factory. There's nothing bigger that's gonna bring that on. So I want to share with you two experiences. I want to give you guys enough time to answer or ask some questions at the end, but I want to share two experiences that kind of shaped my career, um, that forced me into retirement and forced me into the career path that I'm in now. So this first one was um, a few months before Christmas. There was a scene where a woman was trafficking her daughter. Her daughter was 12 years old. Mom was on felony release. Imagine this. She gets released from the jail on a Friday. The judge is like, "Hey, I need you to come back on Monday and sentenced for your crimes, 12 felonies. But I'm going to give you the weekend to go home and get your affairs in order." And her decision was, "I'm going to go home and grab my 12-year-old. I'm going to bring her down from the White Mountains, and I'm going to put her in a situation that's going to be life altering." So as the mom's driving down here, she is planning and plotting a way to traffic her daughter in exchange for sex, for drugs. And so that was a wild situation. We're working street level crimes, and one of our most amazing confidential informants, who was a prostitute of all things, hears about this case, hears about this plan of this woman bringing down this child to traffic. And the prostitute was offended. She's like, "Man, I don't, not maybe not offended, maybe it was more perplexed. It hurt her feelings a little bit that a mom would put her daughter in this situation." So she says, "Hey, I want you to stop it. I want you to get involved. I want you to do what you can to keep this daughter safe." So, long story short, deal gets set up in Mesa. The truck pulls in, the daughter's in the passenger. The drug dealer is on his bicycle, which is kind of funny to me. Drives down, rides down, pulls up to the passenger side. The windows go down, and a conversation's had. He goes to pop the door open, obviously to grab the girl. We come up, we detain him. We're talking to mom. Mom decides, "Hey, you know what? This is a bad situation. I need out." Throws her truck in reverse, turns, and runs myself and my partner over. And we sustained some pretty severe injuries. Okay. Broke my ankle, blew my left knee out. I've had multiple surgeries from it. So from this incident, right? Um, I have to go to the doctor. And when I go to the doctor, he says, "Hey, Brock, you have some severe injuries, and I'm going to prescribe you some Oxycontin. And because you're a cop, you'll never get addicted to this stuff." Okay, let me rephrase that. The doctor himself tells me, "Brock, you're a cop. And because you are a cop, you're not going to get addicted to this stuff." And so I'm like, okay, I have immunity, right? I don't know why. I don't know if it's the badge that protects me or what, but um, it was alarming to me because I noticed that the pills made me feel better. They killed the pain physically, and they killed the mental pain, if that makes any sense. So just going through this process of healing and trying to come back and doing all that, those are difficult situations. Now, this situation was my first experience into like real life addiction. Like I was raised in a very Christian home, 8 siblings, mom and dad are in the home, very, very structured. Dad was a football coach, militaristic style. So addiction didn't run in our home. I didn't know anything about addiction. But on this occasion, I just gave you the clip of it, but it was 2 days after Christmas, December 27th. This gentleman, Wade Jordan, decided to get in his truck, his fifth DUI, and drive and get into a pursuit with the police department. And he goes from, if some of you know the areas, but it took us from US 60 at Mesa Drive all the way to Apache Junction, then back into Mesa. So it was about a 20-mile loop where he took the police on. The helicopters are up there. We're trying to stop him. He flashes a weapon, tells he's going to kill the cops. Like, it was a whole ordeal. And I get called because of my specialty as an AR shooter, and I'm paralleling the call, just trying to get to the scene. It just so happens that he makes a couple different turns in a neighborhood, and I'm the first officer to make the traffic stop. He pulls into a cul-de-sac. He turns around. He's face to face. I'm face to face. Two other vehicles fan out like a felony stop, and we got this guy stopped in a cul-de-sac. Unfortunately, that was situation number one. He finally gets out of the truck, brandishes a weapon. We go through the force continuum. I mean, I know you guys are aware of that, but we did everything we possibly could. We talked to him. We went soft hands. We went hard hands. We beanbagged him. We pepper sprayed him. We did everything. The canine bit him twice just to get back into his truck and come at me. And I had to take lethal force and officer involved shooting through the windshield and kill this man. But I remember pulling him out of the vehicle, the smell of alcohol, just the smells, right? We talk about triggering events. Even today, this was years ago, and I can still smell, I can still hear, and I can still feel those emotions that were there that night. Pulling weight out of the truck was difficult because I'm like, what? Like, where did this guy and that lady that trafficked her daughter, where do they have to go mentally to make these decisions? If that makes any sense. Like, both of them were pursuing a substance. One was pursuing drugs. This guy was pursuing alcohol. And it just was really hard because I didn't come from this background. I didn't understand uh why this guy was willing to lose his life over this. And so here's where for me things kind of changed a little bit. As soon as we get in a shooting, of course, I don't know how many have been out here in a shooting, but they take your weapons, they take your handgun, they take your rifle, and they put you in a car and they transport you to the station. And I the whole time I felt like, man, am I the criminal here? Did I do something wrong? Of course, those thoughts pop in. Was it a good shoot? Did I do it right? Um, but very, very difficult. And I wouldn't say my faith was wavering, but I felt the disdain. I felt not betrayed, but there was a difficulty. There was a rub between myself and the department. I just felt, man, this is a hard situation. And in that time, I was trying to come back and get full duty from my knees in. My knee just it was tough to come back. And the turning point was a day my doctor told me, Brock, your injuries from your knee, I just can't get you back to work. I can't get you back to duty. I don't think you're fit for this. And I don't feel comfortable putting you back on the streets. So for me, that was a major blow. And I had this kind of a dichotomy where I had this anger, this frustration, but then I also had this kind of relief, if you can understand what I'm saying. I felt the pain of losing the department. I felt the pain of losing my dudes, but I was comfortable because I felt like it was a good decision. Now, my life did take a turn at this point, and I want to share with you guys this. And I crossed out brothers because I know there's a lot of sisters in here, but less than 20% of us over the age of 18 who are experiencing mental health difficulties will seek help from a mental health advocate. Now, I know those numbers are always wavering, they're always changing, but I can tell you within the the people who wear the badge that work in this department, that work together, that have this brotherhood, can understand there is a stigma, there is a culture that is killing us. And I had a conversation with a young man that's on here today, and I was talking about how the culture is deadly, and we have to be careful. And I know we're coming a long way. We're changing, and that's exactly why I came back to this profession after years of being gone, is because I felt like I had a story to tell, and I felt like I had information that could be passed on. Okay. This is what I believe a lot of us are. Check this out. This is a little analogy of the trash truck. It's not a great picture, I know, but bear with me. Let me share this analogy with you. When we're in the job, okay, when we're in our careers, we are the driver of the garbage truck. And we have decisions on what we're going to put in the back. But a lot of us, I know for myself particularly, I was the driver. And as long as I was going in a direction, as long as I was showing up for work, as long as I was being available and on time and accountable, and I didn't care what else mattered, I was the driver. And I'm going forward. I'm doing my job as agreed upon and taking the oath, not knowing the shit that was flying out the back, the trash that was flowing, and landing all over my family, all over my friends. An incident, those little cuts we're talking about, at incident after incident after incident, was bleeding on other people. It wasn't really bleeding on me, right? It wasn't getting on me because I'm driving the truck, I'm in control. But this really, really had an effect on my family. And so much so that I felt like I started getting chained up. I felt like um, the chain started creating a bond in my life that I couldn't get out of. Uh, Fast forward a little bit, I started using the pills to cope with the sorrow. Um, they eventually retired me and said, "Hey, Brock, you are no longer fit for this job." And that was probably the big blow. That was probably the moment where I felt handcuffed the most, where I still wanted to be out on the streets. I still wanted to work, but I understood that my injuries were severe enough that I couldn't do it. Okay. I want to show you 10 years, 10 years after retiring, was a full blown addict to pills. And I put these little dyes on the bottom. If you know anything about active addiction, there's a word in there, addict, right? In active addiction, I'm sure I got some chuckles out there, but in my active addiction, I lost everything of who I was. The initial big cut was being released from the department saying, "Hey, Brock, you're no longer fit for duty. Can you turn your gun in, your badge in, and your keys in?" And that feeling of loss, that feeling of like, who am I, man? So remember, this guy right here is how I started. That was day one, and this was 10 years after. Okay. And you can just tell the toll, man, that this took on me, that I became this different, absolutely different person. And I share with you because I think it's super important, where addiction within our profession is normal. And it's more normal than you think. And it might not just be with the pills, but I think alcohol is promoted as a means to control, a means to relax and to calm down after big scenes. I know that we used to have parties at nights. I can't remember what they're called. Someone could probably send it to me. But we, after shift, people would get together and drink together just to kind of decompress. So addiction became a big thing in my life. And I realized that I was only as sick as my secrets. And I hope you guys can understand what I'm saying. Like, when we're in our departments and people ask us how we're doing, we never tell the truth. We never tell people how we're doing. Let me give you an example. I took a because I think this will qualify what I'm trying to say. I took a scene where there was a death, a baby. A mom had come home. She walked into her house. Dad was passed out from substance abuse, and he was laying on top of the baby. The baby was face down. Arizona sun, Arizona heat. Mom rolls dad off. The baby's still warm, and baby gets taken by mom. Mom runs outside. She's trying to call us. She doesn't know her trailer. GPS wasn't working. Fire department circling. We're circling. We just cannot find this. Mom's on 911. She's screaming. And I just remember, oh my gosh, the trauma that this mom's got to be feeling, because I cannot find this place. Finally, mom comes running down the street, holding the baby, gives me the baby. And I take this baby and I roll it over. And for some reason, my mind plays this trick on me that changes the face of the baby and makes it look just like my 2-year-old daughter. And for a split second, I feel like I'm doing CPR on my daughter. And it was just this brain, and it was a trauma. And so I'm sitting there doing chest compressions on a 2-year-old and knowing that this baby was not coming back. So luckily, fire arrives real quick. I was able to get the baby, and I got in my police car. and I drove behind the closest Safeway and I parked and I put that thing in drive and I sobbed. I This was like one of those moments that I broke. And the problem was, and the problem still is, what do we do with that? Like, who do I talk to? I've been retired a while and I'm still nervous about talking to people about traumas that I have. So we come the next day to briefing. There was three of us on scene. The other two had more time on than I did. The sergeant's going around to each individual saying, "How are you doing?" And I remember he went to the guy with the most time on. He's like, "Hey, how are you doing from that baby death yesterday?" He's like, "I'm good. I'm fine." Goes to the next guy. "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm fine. I'm good." And it comes to me, the least of seniority. I look at these two guys and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, I didn't sleep last night. I had nightmares last night. I was sweating last night. This is traumatic. But guess what I said? I'm fine. And so I realize that I'm sick as my secrets, right? Like if I'm not willing to talk about this, if I'm not willing to share this stuff, if I don't have a confidant or somebody that I can talk to, I'm gonna remain sick. And we are going to remain sick in this department, in this profession, until we open up and are willing to communicate and talk and get out of the dump truck and stop driving and stop promoting trauma all over our loved ones. So I like this quote right here. It says, when we fail to discuss our traumas turn into secrets and secrets keep us sick, right? So I dare you to take off the mask of protection and show up as you are. Feel the freedom, the relief, the lightness, because when we are real, that's when we actually heal, and those around us just might heal too. And when I was talking to my buddy Matt, I'm gonna give him a little shout out. We were talking about this yesterday, and the concerns that we have in different departments, and we may not be at a place of healing. We might not be at a place within our departments in the upper echelon that want to talk about this, but we can talk about it. That right there, it says, because when we are real, that's when we actually heal, and those around us just might heal too. And I think that's an important element to our this course right here. So if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. And that's what I was talking about, that 1,000 cuts, where we really, really have to be careful about where and how we're going to go promote this. So what do you do with this? I guess the question is, what are we willing to do? Now, when I retired, for years, I was a mess. That's just the honest assessment. I struggled with addiction. I went through 10 years of active addiction and bleeding on my family and divorcing, and just could not figure this out. I felt like the pills were the most important aspect, the most important element of my life, because here's what I could do. When people said, "Hey, Brock, I think you may be getting addicted to this stuff," I'm like, did you get run over? Did you have multiple surgeries on your knees, your ankle? No? Okay. So I had this rationalization where I could just lie and it made me feel better, if that makes any sense. And so I was bleeding because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the skill set. Um, I didn't have a mentor or nobody talking to me. And when Dara and I first met, I told him, I'm so glad that we are talking about these things, that we are actually doing something about it, because in my generation of law enforcement, we didn't talk about it. We weren't even allowed to talk about it. So I'm very proud. So what do we do? How do we fix this? I'm getting a message from somebody real quick. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything on this. Okay. So let's go some tools. What can we do within our departments to talk about it? I can tell you what I did. I can tell you what others are doing, but I think there's some real important keys to where we have to break some culture bonds. We have to be able to start talking about the traumas. So I'm going to go to that picture here in a second, but I want to share what I did because I think everybody's going to have a different tool set. Everybody's going to have a different tool kit. Like I have a buddy, he fishes. When he gets stressed out, when trauma is too much during the week, he makes time for himself on the weekend to go fish. So he makes sure that he takes the weekend, leaves, preps it, and part of the healing process is the preparation of going fishing, making sure you got all your tackle, you got your poles, you got your boat, you got your like that is very therapeutic for him. Okay, for me, going to the gym every single day is my therapy session. Okay, it just gives me time to heal myself. Um, I have to go through it, and if I miss, my wife says I'm a mess. So that's one thing. So I'm reaching out to you guys on what do you do? Um, but I want to share with you what I did. Okay, I told you for 10 years I struggled with active addiction. I'm 15 years sober today. Well, I mean, I'm 15 years sober, 16 in January. But what I did is I realized that I had to get sober. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. I had to get sober. Okay. I couldn't keep leaning on people. I couldn't keep just doing these things. I had to take control. I had to take the power back in my own life. I have a little bit of time, so I'll tell you. My addiction was super unique. I had a doctor giving me pain pills, so I never ever had to chase them on the streets. Um, what I did was I would prep my night with two pain pills on my credenza with a glass of water. And well, one morning I woke up, I reached over and the pills were not there. I don't know. And if anybody knows anything about addiction, that's very uncommon. We don't miss those things, but on this occasion, my pills were gone. I don't know if I slept and knocked them off. God only knows. But I remember getting up out of bed, kind of changing that routine from reaching over. They weren't there. Crap, I got to go to the medicine cabinet and get them. So I walked to the medicine cabinet in the bathroom. I opened it up. I took my pills out, and I noticed on this day that I was super meticulous where I'd take a pill out and I would write exactly how many were on this. I'm like, dude, that's the craziest thing. Anyways, I took a pill, drank some water, put it back in, and shut the glass. And when it shut, it shined into my room. It gave me that, we talk about an addiction, like there's this moment of rock bottom, there's this moment of surrender, like there's just this moment, right? And I guess that was my moment, because when I closed it and it shined in my room, there was a direct connection, like, Brock, you're a crackhead, dude. My room, my house was a disaster, so bad. But in my head, I'm like, those pills are perfectly placed and they're perfectly counted. You care more about those pills than you do about your own life. And like, I'm an A-type guy. I'm sure you can tell. It pissed me off. I ripped open the cabinet and I grabbed every single pill bottle I had, which was a lot, and I dumped them in the toilet. And right there, I knew I was in trouble. I knew that was probably the biggest mistake of my life, but the greatest decision I ever made. When I dumped those pills and flushed the toilet, all I could think about was, I'm in trouble, man. I'm in real trouble. I'm gonna detox from these things. But I've been making so many promises to God that if He would just get me out of this vicious cycle, that I could stop and break this addiction. And I made that decision. I'm like, okay, you have no more pills, dude. You and now have to go through it and understand that I went through about 8 hours already of not having my pills. So my body was already starting to feel it. It was already, so I knew that I was already eight hours into it and I could do it. So at that point in time, if I would have had a scuba diving suit, I probably would have tried to jump down in the toilet and grab some pills. But I made the decision to detox by myself, alone in my home. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, greatest decisions, but not recommended. For all you people who love somebody that's struggling with opioids, there are so many awesome support systems out there where they can go to detox. It can be medically done. But on my situation, I didn't have that luxury. Nobody knew I was as sick as my secrets. Nobody knew that I was struggling with addiction. I didn't want to call somebody to bring me pills. I didn't want to call family. I didn't want anybody. I wanted to suffer alone. So I decided to just wait it out, turn the hot water on the shower and lay there. Um, 7 days later, I mean, there's a lot that went in, but for the sake of time, I won't share all of it, but it was a very, probably the most difficult 7 days of my life, crapping yourself, urinating yourself, feeling like your skin's crawling off, your eyeballs are going to fall out. At one point, I'm on all fours and I was just throwing up. And I felt like if I do that again, if I dry heave again, my backbone's going to just blow out. So and I'm telling you that just to understand that the level of addiction from opioids is serious. So if you have loved ones that are going through that, when they're telling you that they're fearful of the withdrawals and getting through the detox process, it's a real thing. It was scary, and I don't use today, 15 years later, not because I haven't had surgeries and needed it. It was because I'm so scared of going back to that moment. So let me forward. It took me that little bit of time to detox, and in that detox and in my recovery process, I realized, man, um, there's a lot of people out here, and the men and women on this are the healers. I just want to tell you that the reason you guys are here is because you want to affect change. You want to make change. You've had something happen in your life where you're like, I can be different. I can do better. I can help other people. And that for me was a big thing. I'm like, man, how many cops out there have gone through the same shit, the same stuff that I've gone through, the same pain, the same misery, the same difficulties within the department, been retired, trying to change their lives, trying to figure out a new career. These are all like game changing things. And I'm like, what can I do to change something about this? So I started working for a playground company of all things, which allowed me to go to parks and drive around parks. And on this occasion, I'm driving down the street and I see this young man sitting on a curb with his bags. He's 18 years old, sitting on the curb, and his head's in his lap, and he's crying, he's going through it. And God says, "Hey, pull over and go talk to that kid." And I'm like, "No, man, I'm not gonna do that. I got things to do." And God kind of prods me again, says, "Hey, man, go talk to him. I'm asking you to." And I'm like, "No, too busy. I got things to do." And the third time he about makes me wreck. He's like, "Okay, turn around and go talk to that kid." So I was like, all right, man, I'll do it. So it was a really weird situation. I'm not the kind of guy that does anything like this openly. Didn't feel comfortable. But I pulled around. He was in a church parking lot. I drive up to him, introduced myself. I said, "Man, I really don't know why I'm here other than I was asked to come talk to you." Sat down with him, found out that he was struggling. He's 18 years old. His name was Derek Montgomery, 18 years old, and struggling with active addiction. Didn't know how to get through it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, like I can understand what this kid's going through. I've been there. And so I offered some words of love and counsel and just say, "Hey, bro, you're 18, man. You can do this." I left him with this $2 bill. That's all I had in my wallet. I say, "Man, you can use it for a soda or you can buy dope with it, whatever you want. But I would ask you to do good." But here's where the story changes. I go home. My wife's like, "What'd you do today?" And this story was kind of resonating in my brain. And I'm like, I met this kid, Derek, man. He was struggling with active addiction. And I get emotional talking about this. My wife says, "Hey, Brock, why don't you post about it? Why don't you go on Facebook and post a story? Maybe his family's looking for him." I'm like, "Babe, what are you talking about? There's no way." She's like, "Just post a story, put a picture of him, and maybe his family's looking." So wives win. I'm just gonna tell you, I'm staying married a third time, right? So I post this story, and within an hour, his dad DMs us and says, "Hey, this is my son. He's been struggling with active addiction. We've lost contact with him. We don't know where he's at. Can you please set us up with him?" So we were able to grab dad. We were able to go out there and merge this meeting and put them together in the same space. And I don't know the result of that, but I know for me, it changed something in me. We always talk about purpose. We always talk about what's your why? Why are we doing what we do? Why are we at this meeting? Why did I come on here and share this story? Why? Right? What are we doing with our experiences in our life? And so um I left that thinking, man, I need to do something different. So for the next year, I got my pickup truck. I loaded it with water. Of course, I'm still working in the parks. Gives me an opportunity to go around, talk to people, and share my story, and share their story. And that's what I did. I started a project, and then I had a guy call me up and say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Can I buy you a van?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? So this van from top to bottom was purchased by a donor, gave it to us. And the goal, as you can tell, I'm probably leaving out a lot of stuff, but this was about a year and a half of going out to the parks and sharing the story and putting their stories online and trying to connect families and trying to get people into rehab, trying to get people where they need to go. So with my story, I was able to create this nonprofit, this objective to help people in the community. So this year I cruised around. I went from Arizona to Utah to Idaho to Vegas and sharing a story of just hope, right? Now take it back to that kid in 1997 that started as a police officer. Working with addicts and working with people in substance abuse and working with the homeless was not something that I wanted to do. Not something I ever even thought about doing. But it gave me an opportunity to be different, right? To change my why. So that for me was probably the coolest part of my story. And the reason I come on, the reason I share my story is I want people to have an opportunity to hear that we can change, right? I retired at 7.5 years on. I thought I was done. The hardest thing for me was transitioning from being a cop back to a dad. And I know that seems crazy, but I go home and now I went from working like a life of nitro circus, working a life of being a cop, running around, chasing bad guys, getting into shootings and that. And then the next day I'm home changing diapers, struggling with addiction. Like that wasn't my game plan. That was God's plan. And so, what I like to do is I want to give you guys an opportunity. I don't know. I know Dar asked to allow you guys to ask some questions. I can definitely keep talking, but I want to be respectful and give everybody a chance. I'm going to unshare. I'm going to stop sharing this because I'm sure if there's any questions or answers, I would love to um, ask or answer anything. So I'm going to open it up for a minute, or if you guys don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and just keep talking. But I wanted to give you a chance. So
Brother, you do have Brock in the question and answer section.
okay,
A couple comments and questions. So if you can, we could just review these here, answer them live, and then we'll hear some more of what you have to say as well. And then in the chat section, of course, as you could imagine, you have a ton of comments that are coming in. So let's start with Emma. So she said, if you know someone who may be secretly using pain pills to not only alleviate pain in the body, but for mental pain, what would you do to try and remedy that and help that person out of that same place that they're in?
yeah, like I was saying, this is a great question, and I think I get that question a lot, Emma. Um, One of the problems is in active addiction, there's a moment, right? Um, when you're in it, you don't see a way out. Like I didn't see in the 10 years. First of all, I'd never admitted I was in active addiction. So I think admitting like, hey, I got a problem, that's kind of the first step in the AA. But for me, I was so prideful. I was so gung ho. Like, man, I got an injury. I was injured at work, and now I'm allowed to take these. They're prescribed to me. So for me, that was really hard. It takes people. it takes a team of people to go to that individual and talk to them and say, "Hey, we see you have a problem. Um, can we help you? Is there anything we could do to get you into services?" The problem with opioids is there is a physical, mental, spiritual hook that comes in that grabs you, and you feel like you are destined to use forever. So I do totally believe that you need people to help you pull yourself out of it. I'm not a big what's that TV show where you have they put you in the same room together and they tell you if you don't go to rehab, we're gonna disown you.
I think it's called intervention.
Intervention, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that wouldn't have worked. Like it didn't make sense to me. But having somebody come up to me and say, "Hey, Bev, I know you. I've seen the changes in your life. They're not positive changes. Um, can we help? Can we get involved?" So the key is for everybody is not to be silent. It's the key to talk about this stuff. Like we're sick as our secrets, right? My spouse was the same way. She didn't want to talk about it because how I reacted. So get involved, get more involved in their lives, talk to them, drag their butts around to rehab, to whatever they need to do, because that moment will happen.
Thanks so much, man. That's
Yeah.
great, great answer. Next question comes from somebody who you actually met in the field, Brock. I don't know if you remember Chris Hannigan, but he's also with Tempe PD that you had there was a post that was done with Chris, and you were observing Chris in the field taking
Oh
care
man.
of a homeless man in Tempe. Um, and so Chris is on here today. Actually, both of you guys have met each other before, which is really neat. But Chris asked. He said, in our culture, we often get together after a shift to have a drink or talk through the tough calls we've experienced, whether from that day, a few shifts back, or even past incidents. It becomes a kind of informal treatment or confession that helps us to cope with the traumas that we face on a job. Do you think that over time this practice could condition your mind and body to associate coping with those difficult memories with alcohol or substances? And I see your head shaking already. And when you are retired, if those same memories and images resurface, would your brain naturally lean towards using alcohol or substances again as a way to cope because it essentially got conditioned that it worked that way in the past?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, but first of all, love you, dude. I was so honored to see you on the field and watch the way you work. So thank you for that. Let Dar, this is awesome. When we're police officers, we train to a conditioned response, correct? When we go to the range, we train our weapons the same way every time. If there's a malfunction, you tap, rack, and assess, right? You are training to a conditioned response to train towards when this event happens, this is how you're going to react. So to answer your question, those events after are can be very therapeutic. They can be amazing for us if we could do it without the alcohol. Unfortunately, the alcohol becomes our our safe space, becomes that comfort blanket, and so that's a very dangerous road, because alcohol is also a depressant. So and some of us like me can't mitigate how much alcohol I'm going to use. Like if you put I'm an addict, so you put one in front of me, I'm going to drink them all. And so that's one of the problems, but I do believe that we train ourselves to a conditioned response even in positive like these moments that we think are healthy. So yeah, we got to be super careful. We're actually going out and trying to break those, not break them to where don't have them, but just don't include the alcohol process. So hopefully that helps.
That's great. Thanks, Brock. I saw that we had another question that came in here. Do you know of any resources we can share with families of those who are actively using for them to receive help or to know how to help the user? Most times, families of those active at using substances start creating trauma as well.
Yeah, the 100 Club. I don't know if how many of you guys have used the 100 Club, but if you're within the law enforcement within this realm, phenomenal program. They help you get into rehabs, detoxes, aftercare, sober living. It's a great program, but there are hundreds out in Arizona. I'm speaking just Arizona because that's where I would live and where I work. There are a ton. Shatterproof's a good one. I think it's in Florida. So there are tons of resources out there. If you need them, please reach out. I know Dar has a bunch of them, but we can also help you align with them.
That's great. And we will be compiling again
Yeah.
just a list of resources. So anything that Brock has that he would recommend, and anything that you all have too as attendees that you send our way, Zeno is going to compile this master list of resources. And to be honest with you, I would love and really appreciate if you personally have used a program that speaks loudly to me, whether it was a positive or not so great experience, and then why. So, and I know not every program works for everybody, and different people have different experiences at different programs. So I want to make sure that at least we have a solid array of programs, and Brock will share his own. Brock, we have another question here. What advice would you give to chaplains interacting with an officer like yourself, especially in those days of addiction directly before leaving the department? Knowing what you know now, any advice to breaking through denial? And then how do you balance being helpful in a more forward way while also building a connection for their future realization to be a resource?
Ooh, what a great question.
Yeah.
Reagan, there's four areas of so when you're dealing with anybody, it doesn't matter if they have a badge or not. There's four areas of recovery that have to be intact for them to progress. So think about it like this: we're going to play a little baseball, home plate, first base, second base, third base. Home is how's your home life? What's it look like? Is this a place of refuge? Is it a safety spot for me? My home, even though it looked like a great spot from the outside, my wife and I were continuously arguing. Addiction was just killing me, right? So my home life was a place where it added to the fuel, the fire. So my home was kind of a struggle. My health, and we're talking about mental, physical, spiritual health. My mental health leaving the apartment was at an all-time low, right? So those are areas that we have to work through. Like my physical health has always been pretty good because I always loved the gym, but my mental was dropping. So home health, community. When you're in active addiction, when you leave the department, your connections, your people, your community are gone. Okay. So you have to redevelop these communities that we've cut off in active addiction. Fourth one is purpose. So home, health, community, purpose. So to answer that question, you have to break down those four areas and find out what are those areas that we struggle with, and you have to empower them again into promoting wellness for them. So hopefully that kind of made sense.
Awesome, Brock. Well, we are coming up on the last 3 minutes. Was there
Okay.
anything else that you wanted to share? I know that after you're done, there's going to be more questions that'll pop up here in the group. Like one just popped up right now. Maybe you could address this one. Wellness coordinator here. What is the best way to break the barrier of stigma in law enforcement regarding mental health addiction? Is education enough? Do we need top-down mandatory psych evals or bottom-up change culture?
Man, that is such a good question. That's the age old question, right? I think it starts with us being open. So I came from that's my job now as a wellness coach in Maricopa County. And man, I just time and consistency over time of being consistent, sharing the same message is where we're really going to make the biggest change in our career. But you got to have it from the top, right? You got to have that buy-in. So Dar, that's a tough question because each department, I know my buddy, he's struggling with the department as well. So we have to change the culture, and I think we almost have to do it from the bottom up. These new recruits coming in, man, they want wellness. And so the guys at the top like us, we might not accept it, but these new guys really are. So don't forget them trying to change the top.